Then we have a problem. Jimmy Kimmel Live is set to return tonight to ABC. However, there seems to be a caveat, a problem with it. I found a story in the Hollywood Reporter written by Alex Wiepren. The headline reads, Nexstar and Sinclair won't air Jimmy Kimmel's return, impacting 66 ABC stations. The preemption means that Jimmy Kimmel Live will remain unavailable for some of the U.S. despite its return after a nearly week-long suspension. Tyrone Bowman Live, welcome to the program. Let's talk about it. You know how I do it on this end over here. I'm not going to waste a little time talking about nothing because I want to deal with the substance here. So there seems to be a problem with free speech in America. Censorship is still attempting to rear its ugly head. And if those who think they control the world and control people's minds can't control it one way, they try to control it in another way. So let's get down to this article, and I'll rip it to shreds and we'll talk about it together. Jimmy Kimmel may be returning to ABC Tuesday night, but his show will remain dark in a large swath of the U.S., with Sinclair Broadcast Group and Nexstar saying that they will preempt the show. Well, the question is, why are they so strongly against Jimmy Kimmel returning? And why are they adamantly opposed to airing it on several of the ABC stations? And don't give me that crap about, oh, he said something that's so terrible and that's so offensive. I had an opportunity to watch a lot of the memorial for the late Charlie Kirk, and what I heard was offensive, terrible, laced with bigotry and racism all throughout the entire memorial service. Quote, beginning Tuesday night, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live, exclamation point, across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming, end quote, the company said in a statement Monday. Quote, discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return, end quote. Well, that's going to be a problem for Nexstar and Sinclair. Because if you think that the millions and millions and millions of people who protested against ABC canceling Jimmy Kimmel Live to begin with are going to sit back and allow this so-called compromise to take place, well, they're going to show you what the power of the people really is about and what the power of protest is about. See, a lot of people don't realize your opposition uses the methods that you should be using. When they don't like what you like, the first thing they say, we're going to boycott you. And then that doesn't work. They say, well, then we're going to vehemently protest against whatever you say or do. But when everyday people like you and I start boycotting the billionaire corporations, then there's a problem. When we start boycotting sometimes their lousy services, their overpriced premiums, which is disappointing at the most, then there seems to be a problem. Until these people are affected at the bottom line, what it really hurts in terms of losing billions and billions and billions of dollars virtually overnight, they will not get it. Billionaires and trillionaires, they don't give a damn about humanity, but they love money. That's what they love: money, power, and sex. That's what they love. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about freedom of speech. They just want to be in control. You know, in Nazi Germany, you know how Hitler conquered the people? First of all, he got them to vote for him. And then through propaganda. How did he propagandize his political ideology by condemning the press, condemning free speech, making the press become an enemy, making free speech become an enemy. And all the while, what was he doing? He was taking precious taxpayers' money and sending millions and millions of leaflets, pouring it out of propaganda out into the streets. So Sinclair and Nexstar are not going to listen until they almost go bankrupt. So what else is going on here? There's something else going on behind the scenes. Who stands to profit? Is license renewal at stake? Are they jockeying with the FCC to gain more leverage, to have more power, more stations? Because it just doesn't make sense. There's no plausibility factor here. And this quote about discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return. That's a lie. There are no discussions in play because Jimmy Kimmel has adamantly made it abundantly clear there will be no compromise. Their statement continues to say this, quote, "We made a decision last week to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live following what ABC referred to as Mr. Kimmel's, quote, ill-timed and insensitive comments at a crucial time in our national discourse," end quote. But what about what the MAGA Republican said when she was blaming Democrats for what occurred? You don't hear a peep out of her anymore because they're hiding her. They're trying to protect her. She's the one who said, quote, "Democrats own this. Democrats own what happened here today," end quote. So where is the outspoken MAGA congressperson? Nowhere to be found. This is what these people do. They stir up a lot of ish, and then they run and hide behind their bodyguards, behind security, hide in their offices, ignore the constituents who put them in power to begin with. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't like what politicians do, the same way you voted them in, you can unvote them. Vote them out. You can prove to them more that you have the power when you go to the polls and you show them who the boss really is. Vote them out of power. And then they won't have then they won't have all that protection that they have. Then they can't try to bully people anymore because they'll become jobless. And then they'll say, well, we only had the interests of the American people in mind. What people are you talking about? Because you can't be talking about everyday Americans. You're talking about the rich and the powerful. Just like they're trying to sell the big, beautiful bill, quote, close quote, now that the midterm elections are coming up, they're going down to their counties and telling their constituents, but there are provisions in the bill that's going to benefit everybody. You just have to take time and let it work. Ain't nobody got 4 and 5 years to make a bill work. People are hungry. They're jobless. Inflation is up. Homelessness is running rampant in the streets. And when people don't have jobs, when they don't have money, you know what happens? Lawlessness begins to prevail. So don't be duped by Nexstar's so-called statement here. And then they go on to say, quote, "We stand by that decision pending assurance that all parties are committed to fostering an environment of respectful, constructive dialogue in the market we serve. In the meantime, we know that Jimmy Kimmel Live will be available nationwide on multiple Disney-owned streaming products, while our stations will focus on continuing to produce local news and other programming relevant to their respective markets," end quote. That news is always slanted news. Why aren't they telling the Republicans to be civil? Why aren't they telling them to behave? Why aren't they telling the other networks where they go and foster their propaganda and their political hateful ideology 24 hours a day to behave? Because the consensus within the MAGA movement, that's what they want. They want divisiveness. They want chaos. They want confusion. They want the races constantly arguing and bickering and raising hell with one another. They want the communities to be upheaved with dissension. That way they can try to justify their plan. And don't be moved by them trying to change the narrative in the media. It's a bait and switch game, ladies and gentlemen. So Jimmy Kimmel can't even come back on in peace without the politics behind the scene constantly stirring up crap. The Walt Disney Company said Monday that Kimmel would return to the air after his nearly week-long suspension. Quote, last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. Who caused the intense emotional situation? Jimmy Kimmel didn't cause it. That's where censorship comes in at. I saw everything that other network over there had to say, and they didn't say anything good except spew out the vitriol that they've been spewing over and over again. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday, quote, end quote. However, most ABC stations in the U.S. are owned by independent station groups, and Sinclair is the largest owner of ABC stations with 38 across the country, including WJLA, the ABC affiliate that serves the Washington, D.C. metro area. Nexstar operates 28 ABC affiliates. Oh, now the plot thickens because they're in the Washington market. So they don't want to air the show. What are you going to do? Put Fox and Friends on? Late at night? Nobody want to watch that crap. So what are you going to replace it with? More dismal, lying news that people don't want to see? Every time they turn on the news, there's nothing good for them to watch. The only relief they have is laughter. And laughter is medicine. Laughter takes people away from the conundrum of heartache and pain and dismay that they have to deal with all day long. Working jobs that they hate, facing employers that they loathe and cannot stand, smiling when they don't feel like smiling, speaking when they don't feel like speaking, working for little to nothing wages, slave wages, working hours that they don't want to work. They spend so much time away from their families until they don't have any time for anything else but to try to get some rest because they're totally exhausted. And then on their days off, these insensitive, non-empathetic employers got the nerve to call you when somebody doesn't come to work and expect you to take time away from your planned activities and your family to come in and cover a shift and don't even get time and a half for it. Are you serious? So they think people are just going to continue to be abused and taken advantage of? No, they're not. Democracy is powerful. How do you think America came into existence? Through a bloody revolutionary war. Against who? Against the King of England. They called him a dictator. They called him a tyrant. And the 13 colonies were born as a result of a war. Now we have a different type of war. It's a war of words, a war of a digital age, a war of AI, a war of censorship, trying to stifle the creativity of our minds. The article goes on to say it was a pushback from Sinclair and Nexstar that sparked Disney's decision to pull the show in the first place, with both station groups telling Disney that they would preempt the show in response to his comments last Monday night about Charlie Kirk's killer. Let me get this straight. You want the alleged killer of Charlie Kirk to be treated with civility? You want people to say nice things about that man? You want them to have empathy for him? Are you crazy? You want to coddle him, hold his hand, give him a pillow? Make sure he has an air-conditioned cell and 24-hour security around him after what he is to allege to have done? Come on here, people. If that had been a black man who did the same thing, it would be nonstop coverage 24 hours a day. They call him a monster, a beast, an animal, a savage. MAGA would never shut up. There'd be protests all in the streets, law and order. It'd be an all-out war against black people throughout this nation. Now you want people to be sympathetic? Well, what about Charlie Kirk's widow? Where's the empathy for her? Where's the sympathy for her and her family? Where are the healing hands to reach out to her? People are not concerned on a large scale about the person that committed this terrible crime. So Nexstar and Sinclair and ABC were upset about that. Sources say that other ABC affiliates had also expressed concerns. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. $8 billion loss, an $8 billion loss occurred within a week with Disney, with the Walt Disney Company. They were losing so much in stock, ratings were dropping, subscriptions were being canceled. People were canceling their programs and shows right and left. No, it was an attempt to save face. And Jimmy Kimmel did the smart thing. He lawyered up and allowed his lawyers to do the talking. So, Nexstar, it should be noted, has a $6 billion plus deal pending before the FCC to acquire Tigna, an agreement that would make it by far the largest owner of local TV stations in the country. Sinclair has also expressed a desire to pursue M&A, which would also require FCC approval. That's what it's about. They want what they want. They want that $6 billion deal approved by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. And they don't want anybody getting in the way of what they want. People have got to wake up in this country and start paying attention. This is not a game. It has gotten real. And while people are someplace doing all the dumb stuff that they're doing, plans are being made every day to strip us of our constitutional rights, freedom of speech in this country and in this nation. And as I said before, and I'm going to close with this, a lot of people really don't care until it comes to their neighborhood, their community, their friends, their churches. The evangelicals don't care because they took the money that was given to them. So naturally, they're going to say what must be said. They've been bought and paid for. Now, what is it with preachers and money? Black preachers too. What is it with preachers and money? They'll sell anybody out for $1. And then they'll invoke the name of Almighty God as justification for their rottenness and greed and pretentious Christianity. They need to go back to the Holy Writ and find out exactly what Jesus said and what Jesus did. Feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, showing mercy and grace and compassion for all, not for one select group of people. As I said last night, Jimmy Kimmel should have never agreed to come back to ABC. I would have sued them and kept on moving and taken my carnival, my show someplace else. And the next thing you know, you'd see me on another network. That'll show them, and that'll teach them about the power of the people, the power of protest. Never surrender, never quit.